I worked as a night manager at a five-star hotel for 7 years. I knew every secret of that building, from the faulty wiring in the VIP suites to the illegal ways the owner was dodging taxes. Last month, the owner's son, a 23-year-old who has never worked a day in his life, was made my boss. On his first day, he called me into his office and told me I was too old for the hotel's new modern look and fired me on the spot without severance. He told me to leave my keys and get out within 10 minutes. What he didn't know is that the hotel's entire reservation system runs on a legacy server that I built myself. It requires a manual security patch every Sunday night, or the entire database self-encrypts and shuts down. I didn't say a word. I left, went home, and waited. That Sunday, the system crashed. Every single reservation for the next 6 months vanished. They couldn't check people in. They couldn't process credit cards. And they lost over $2 million in bookings in 48 hours. The owner called me, screaming and crying, promising me double my salary to come back. I told him I'd only return as a consultant, for a one-time fee of $250,000, plus a written apology from his son published on the hotel's Instagram. They were so desperate they paid the money within an hour. I went in, typed one command to unlock the server, and then handed in my permanent resignation. Now I'm traveling the world with their money, and the son was forced to work at a fast food chain by his father. My grandfather was a very wealthy man who owned several factories. When he passed away, his will stated that his $20 million estate would be split between me and my cousin, but only after we both turned 30. My cousin, who has always been a manipulative liar, convinced my elderly grandmother to sign a power of attorney while she was heavily medicated. He then used that power to sell off most of the properties and put the money into a private account in his name. He thought he was a genius. He even sent me a picture of his new private jet with the caption, "Thanks for the donation, loser." But I had been working with my grandfather's lawyer for years. My grandfather knew my cousin was a snake, so he hid a poison pill clause in the original trust. If any heir tried to liquidate assets before the age of 30, their entire share would be immediately forfeited and donated to a charity of my choice. I waited until my cousin had spent nearly $5 million of the stolen money on cars and parties. Then I triggered the clause. The law came down on him like a hammer. Not only was he forced to pay back every cent, but because he had committed fraud to get the power of attorney, he was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. I took my half and donated his half to an animal shelter. Now he's eating prison food while I live in the house he tried to steal. I was the maid of honor at my sister's wedding. She was marrying a guy she thought was a perfect tech entrepreneur. He was rich, handsome, and my parents loved him. But a week before the wedding, I found out the truth. He wasn't an entrepreneur. He was a professional scammer who had already been married 3 times in different states to steal women's dowries and savings. I tried to tell my sister, but she called me jealous and told me to stay away from her life. My parents even threatened to disown me if I ruined her big day. So, I played along. On the day of the wedding, during the "if anyone has any objections" part, I didn't just stand up. I walked to the front with a projector and a laptop. I played a video of his 3 previous wives explaining how he robbed them, followed by his actual arrest records from the FBI. The entire room went silent. The groom tried to run, but I had already called the police, and they were waiting at the exit. My sister was devastated, but she realized I saved her from losing everything. My parents apologized, and now I'm the hero of the family. The groom is now facing 15 years for multiple counts of fraud. I was a lead engineer at a major car company. I spent 4 years designing a new engine that was 40% more efficient. My manager, a guy who barely knows how an engine works, took my blueprints, put his name on them, and presented them to the board. He got a massive bonus and a promotion, while I was moved to the basement department. I didn't quit. Instead, I waited for the final testing phase before mass production. I knew there was a tiny calculation error in the cooling system that I had purposely ignored after he stole my work. If the car ran for more than 5,000 miles, the engine would literally melt. I waited until the company had already manufactured 50,000 units and shipped them globally. When the first 100 engines started melting, the company went into a panic. They faced a multi-billion-dollar recall. During the internal investigation, I discovered the error in my manager's stolen blueprints. I proved that he had modified my original designs, which he claimed as his own, and that his lack of technical knowledge led to the error. He was fired, sued for gross negligence, and lost his house. The company then paid me a $500,000 bonus to fix the issue and promoted me to vice president of engineering. There was a guy in our neighborhood named Mark who acted like he owned the street. He would park his 3 huge trucks on other people's lawns, play loud music until 4 a.m., and scream at anyone who complained. The police wouldn't do anything because his brother was a local officer. Mark especially targeted an old lady named Mrs. Higgins, intentionally blowing smoke into her house and killing her. Flowers with weed killer. That was my breaking point. I did some research and found out that Mark's house was actually built 5 feet over the property line onto a protected city forest zone. I also found out he was running an illegal car repair shop in his garage without any environmental permits. I didn't go to the local police. I went to the state environmental agency and the city surveying department. They showed up with a bulldozer. Mark was fined $50,000 for environmental damage and was ordered to demolish the part of his house that was on city land. Since his brother couldn't help him with state officials, Mark lost everything. Mrs. Higgins and I watched from her porch as they tore down his illegal garage. He had to move into a trailer park, and the neighborhood hasn't been this quiet in years.